The entertainment world didn't explode with a scandal. It froze in silence, because a calm, honest confession from those closest to Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo revealed something far more powerful than rumors. A bond that never asked to be seen, yet never disappeared. No press conference, no breaking news banner, no dramatic announcement from the stars themselves. And yet the industry shifted. Behind the polished stages and flawless smiles, a manager, someone who had stood quietly beside Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo for years, spoke a few simple sentences. Not loudly, not emotionally, but honestly. What made fans stop breathing wasn't what was said. It was who said it. Because managers don't speak lightly. They carry secrets heavier than contracts. They witness exhaustion hidden behind makeup. They see what survives when cameras turn away. And that night, without intention, without script, a truth slipped through. People see them as stars, the manager said softly. But they never see how they hold each other together when the world becomes too heavy. No explanation followed. No clarification was offered. And that silence was where the story truly began. Xiao Zhan, Wang Yibo, two names that have never existed separately in the public imagination. Even when time, schedules, and paths pulled them apart, something invisible kept their names bound together. To fans, they are icons. To the industry, they are irreplaceable assets. But behind closed doors, they are simply human. And this is where the illusion starts to crack. It started as a relaxed interview. No provocative questions. No pressure. A manager was casually asked what it was like working with two top-tier artists whose careers now move in different directions, yet whose names are still inseparable. He smiled, paused, then fell silent longer than expected, and finally said, "They never asked to be compared, but somehow they always think about each other." That sentence spread like quiet thunder. Not romantic, not professional, not easily defined, just human. What does it mean to always think about each other in an industry that teaches distance as survival? Fans replayed the words again and again, trying to place them into categories that simply wouldn't fit. Another manager, in a different moment, revealed something even more delicate. There were days when Xiao Zhan looked completely fine, he said, but we knew he was carrying something heavy. And strangely, Wang Yibo always sensed it first, before assistants, before staff, before anyone else. No public messages, no visible gestures, just awareness. And when the roles were reversed, Wang Yibo rarely talks about exhaustion, the manager admitted. But Xiao Zhan notices the smallest changes. He always has. Not coincidence, not imagination, but familiarity built over years. The kind that forms quietly, without permission. The public has always believed one thing. Distance means drifting apart. Different schedules, different projects, different paths. From the outside, it looked logical. Two stars who once stood side by side, now moving forward alone. But behind closed doors, managers tell a quieter truth. They don't meet often anymore, one of them admitted. But whenever one name is mentioned, the other always reacts. Not with excitement, not with forced smiles meant to reassure the room, but with silence. A pause that lingers just a little too long. A stillness that doesn't belong to strangers. Because silence, when shared history exists, is never empty. Another manager explained it carefully. It's not the kind of silence you use to hide something. It's the kind you use when words would only make things smaller. Fans began to realize something unsettling. Distance didn't weaken the connection. It refined it. What once may have been loud became restrained. What once was visible became internal. And perhaps that restraint was not loss, but evolution. When directly asked if their bond was purely professional, the answer again avoided certainty. The manager simply said, "Not every feeling needs a label to be real. Some survive precisely because they're never named." That sentence hit harder than any confirmation ever could. Because in an industry obsessed with definitions, this refusal felt deliberate. Was it friendship forged in survival? Was it mutual understanding born from shared storms? Or something deeper, something they themselves chose never to define? The truth is, the more the managers spoke, the clearer one thing became. Whatever it was never fragile. The most unexpected revelation did not involve emotion. It involved decisions. Managers quietly admitted that during critical moments that could shift careers, reputations, even futures, one unspoken factor was always present. We were never told directly, a manager revealed, but we understood. There were lines that should never be crossed, choices that should never hurt the other. No instructions, no demands, just understanding. This wasn't about control. It wasn't about ownership. It was about protection. In an industry where competition is normalized, an advantage is everything. Choosing restraint is rare. Choosing empathy is even rarer. There were opportunities that could have sparked headlines, but were quietly declined. Moments when silence was chosen over exposure. Not to preserve an image, but to preserve a person. And that distinction matters. Because this was never about romance or scandal. It was about maturity. Two individuals who understood the cost of fame and refused to let that cost include harming each other. Fans began to feel it then. This wasn't a dramatic story. It was something heavier, something calmer, something real. Care that doesn't demand attention. Protection that doesn't seek reward. And perhaps that is why it endured. Eventually, one question surfaced again and again. Why now? Why speak after so many years of silence? The answer, when it came, was simple and quietly heartbreaking. Because now, the manager said, they are strong enough not to be destroyed by misunderstanding. Time created distance. Distance created safety. And safety finally allowed honesty. Not loud honesty, not headline honesty, but the kind that slips out gently. When a risk is finally lower than the burden of silence. There was no declaration of love, no confirmation of a relationship, no attempt to define anything. And that absence was intentional, because what truly mattered was never meant for public approval. The manager's final words lingered long after the conversation ended. Whatever people choose to imagine, one thing is certain. They changed each other's lives in ways that can never be undone. And maybe that is the truth fans weren't prepared for. That not all meaningful bonds are meant to be understood. Some are meant to be respected. This story doesn't end with answers. It ends with a feeling, a recognition that some connections don't fade when the spotlight moves on. They simply learn how to exist without noise, without explanation, without permission. So the question isn't what they were to each other. The real question is this. In a world that constantly demands everything be seen, what kind of bond survives by choosing to remain unseen? And perhaps in that quiet choice lies the most powerful truth of all.